I stopped believing in love the way most people stop believing in God. Not all at once. Not because something terrible happened on one specific night. It was slower than that, quieter than that. It was the accumulation of small betrayals, the conversations that never went deep enough, the mornings that felt emptier than the nights before them. I stopped believing the way a coastline erodes, one wave at a time, until the shape of what I was no longer matched, the shape of what I remembered. And the worst part, the part no one tells you about, is that once you stop believing, you do not grieve. You feel relieved. You feel lighter, freer, almost peaceful. Because hope is exhausting. Wanting someone to see you, to truly see you, takes more energy than pretending you do not care. So I stopped. I stopped looking across rooms. I stopped wondering if the next conversation would be different. I stopped rehearsing what I would say if someone finally asked the right question. I became the man who had everything figured out, calm, composed, self-sufficient, and no one, not a single person, suspected that behind that composure was a man who had simply given up, not on life, not on meaning, not on purpose, on being known. I gave up on the idea that another human being could sit across from me and understand the weight of what I carry without me having to explain it. That is what I stopped believing in. Not love as a word, not love as a concept, love as a real thing that happens between two real people who are both terrified and both willing to stay anyway. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because if you are listening to this, you know exactly what I mean. You have been through your own version of this erosion. You have had your own slow unraveling, the marriage that lasted decades but stopped meaning something long before the papers were signed. The relationship that ended not with a fight but with a silence so loud it filled every room. Or maybe you never lost someone. Maybe you just stopped expecting anyone to arrive. You built a life, a good life, a life with routines and friendships and Sunday mornings that belong entirely to you. And somewhere inside that beautiful, well-constructed life, there is a room you do not enter. A room where the version of you who still wanted to be held lives quietly in the dark. You do not visit her often. You do not talk about her, but she is there, and she has been waiting longer than you want to admit. I know this, because I had the same room, and I'm going to tell you a story, not a parable, not a metaphor, a story about a decision I almost did not make. And I need you to listen carefully, because at the end, I am going to ask you one question, and your answer will tell you more about yourself than anything a therapist has ever said. Here is the story. Imagine you are 63 years old. You have been alone for 7 years, not lonely in the way people assume, not sitting by a window staring at the rain. You have friends, you have a sharp mind, you read books that most people cannot finish. You travel when you want to. You answer to no one. But 7 years ago, the man you built your life around looked at you one morning and said he was leaving, not for someone else, not because of something you did. He just said he had been disappearing inside the marriage for years, and he could not pretend anymore. You did not cry that day. You cried 3 weeks later, in a grocery store parking lot, holding a bag of oranges, because the brand he always bought was on sale, and your hand reached for it before your brain could stop you. That is when it hit you, not the loss of him. The loss of the version of yourself who still reached for things without thinking. After that, you rebuilt, slowly, carefully, brick by brick. You learned to sleep in the center of the bed. You learned to cook for one without feeling pathetic. You learned that silence is not punishment when you are the one who chose it. And you told yourself, never again, not bitterly, not dramatically, just quietly, the way you close a book you have finished reading. Never again will I hand someone the power to make me reach for oranges in a parking lot and fall apart. Now imagine this. 4 years into your new life, a man appears. Not in a dramatic way. He does not sweep you off your feet. He does not say the right thing at the right time. He says the wrong thing. He stumbles over his words at a dinner party you almost did not attend. He makes a joke that does not land, and he laughs at himself before anyone else can. And something inside you shifts. Not a spark, not butterflies. Something older than that. Something deeper. A recognition. You see in him the same quiet exhaustion you carry. The same practiced ease that hides a decade of learning how to be alone. The same careful distance from everyone in the room, except you. He looks at you the way someone looks at a locked door they are not sure they are allowed to knock on, and you feel it. The pull, the terrifying, unwanted, uninvited pull towards someone who might actually see you. But here is where it gets complicated. He tells you, over coffee 3 weeks later, that he has been alone for 9 years, that his wife died, that he spent the first 2 years pretending he was fine, and the next 7 years actually being fine, until he was not. He tells you he does not trust himself to love again, that he is afraid of what he becomes when he cares too much, that the last time he let someone in, he lost the ability to function when they left. He is not asking you for anything. He is just telling you, and in that telling, you hear everything he is not saying. He is saying, I see you, I recognize you, and I am terrified that if I step closer, I will need you. And needing someone at this age, after this much loss, feels like standing at the edge of a cliff and being asked to jump. Now here is your choice. You can walk away, thank him for the coffee, go home to your clean apartment and your Sunday mornings and your beautiful, safe, perfectly constructed solitude. No one would blame you, no one would even know. You would simply return to the life you built after the oranges. The life that works. The life that does not require you to hand anyone the knife and hope they do not cut you with it. That is option A. Or you can stay. You can sit across from this man who is shaking slightly, who cannot meet your eyes, who just told you the most honest thing anyone has said to you in 7 years. You can reach across the table, not to hold his hand, just to place yours next to his. Close enough that he can feel the warmth without the pressure. And in that gesture, you can say without words, I know what it costs to say what you just said, and I am not going to run from it. But if you choose option B, you need to understand something. There is no guarantee. This man might disappear in 3 months when the closeness gets too heavy. He might pull away the first time you ask him a question he is not ready to answer. He might love you in the way avoidant men love, fully, deeply, and from a distance that makes you question everything. And you might fall back into the pattern you swore you left behind. The checking, the wondering, the reading of every silence as a rejection, the staying up at night, replaying conversations, looking for the moment it started to shift. You might become the woman you were before the parking lot, before the oranges, before the rebuilding. And this time, there are no decades left to start over. This time, the gamble is not just your heart, it is your peace. So I ask you, what would you do? Would you protect the life you built, or risk it for the chance that this man, this imperfect, terrified, quietly honest man, might be the one who finally sees the room you never enter? Tell me in the comments, because your answer is not really about him. It is about whether you still believe that being known is worth the cost of being seen. And that question, that impossible, unfair, beautiful question, is the one I failed. For years, I failed it. I chose option A every single time, not because I was strong, because I was efficient. I had turned self-protection into an art form, and I mistook the art for wisdom. Let me tell you what no one says about choosing safety. It works. It works perfectly. You wake up without dread. You go through your day without wondering if someone is pulling away. You eat dinner in peace. You sleep without the weight of another person's silence pressing against your chest. Safety works the way anesthesia works. It removes the pain, but it also removes the feeling. And here's the shock I did not see coming. The longer I stayed safe, the less I recognized myself. I would catch my reflection in a window and see a man I could not quite place. Familiar, yes. Presentable, yes. But hollow in a way that no amount of routine could fill. I had become a man built entirely out of decisions designed to avoid pain. And a life built to avoid pain is not a life. It is a waiting room. You sit in it. You read the magazines. You watch other people get called in. And you tell yourself that your name will never be called, and that you are fine with that. But you are not fine. You are just numb enough to forget what fine used to feel like. I think you understand this. I think you have lived inside your own waiting room. Not because you are broken, not because you lack courage, but because the last time you walked through a door, the room on the other side had no floor. You fell. And the falling taught you something your body never forgot. It taught you that love, real love, the kind that sees you in the dark, that love does not arrive with safety instructions. It arrives with a cost, and the cost is everything you built to protect yourself from needing it. That is the shock. Now let me tell you about the regret. The regret does not come when you are alone. It comes when you are surrounded. It comes at a dinner table with friends who laugh easily, who touch each other's arms without thinking, who say we instead of I and do not even notice. It comes when your daughter calls and tells you about a fight she had with her husband, and you want to say, hold on to him, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because the alternative is a silence so complete that you forget the sound of your own name in someone else's mouth, but you do not say that. Because saying it would mean admitting something you have spent years denying, that you miss it. Not the relationship, not the man, not the specific arms or the specific voice. You miss the sensation of mattering to someone at 2 a.m. You miss the terrifying privilege of being someone's first thought. And the anger is not at him, not at the one who left, not at the one who died, not at the one who stayed but stopped showing up. The anger is at yourself, for building such a perfect fortress that no one can get in, for being so good at independence that people actually believe you do not need anyone, for training yourself to smile at weddings and feel nothing, and then crying alone in your car on the way home because the nothing is louder than any sadness you have ever known. That is the regret. It is not about what you lost. It is about what you refuse to let yourself want again. And here is where the illumination begins. Not the fix. There is no fix. But there is a truth that changes the shape of everything once you hear it. The walls you built after the heartbreak, they were not a mistake. They were necessary. You needed them the way a broken bone needs a cast, to hold the pieces in place while something deeper healed. But a cast is not meant to be permanent. A cast that stays too long does not protect the bone. It weakens the muscle around it. It teaches the limb to forget how to move. Your walls did their job. They kept you alive during the years when being alive felt like a full-time occupation. But the woman sitting inside those walls right now, she is not the same woman who built them. She is stronger, wiser, more ruthless in her self-awareness. She does not need the walls anymore. She needs the door. Not a door that opens for everyone. Not a door that swings wide at the first sign of attention. A door that opens once, for the right knock, at the right time, by someone who understands that the door was closed for a reason, and respects the weight of it before asking to enter. That is not weakness. That is the most sophisticated form of emotional intelligence a human being can develop, knowing when the protection has served its purpose, and choosing, deliberately, to let it go. Not because you are naive, not because you forgot what happened last time, because you remember exactly what happened, and you have decided that the cost of never feeling it again is higher than the cost of risking it once more. Now I need to tell you something I have never said out loud, something I have carried for longer than I should have, something that changed the way I understand love, loss, and the strange mathematics of time. There is a truth about getting older that no one talks about. When you are young, you choose people based on possibility. What could this become? Where could this go? You have decades ahead of you, so the stakes feel low. If this one does not work, there will be another. But when time narrows, when you can feel the horizon pulling closer, something shifts inside you. You stop looking for possibility. You start looking for meaning. You stop asking, could this person make me happy? You start asking, could this person make me real? Because that is what happens when time becomes precious. You stop wasting it on people who only see the surface. You become ruthless in your selectivity, not cruel, not cold, ruthless in the way a sculptor is ruthless, removing everything that is not the statue. And the people who remain in your life after that process, they are not there by accident. They are there because they survived the most demanding filter a human being can create, the filter of a person who knows exactly how much time they have left to waste. That is what happened to me. I did not choose you because I was lonely. I chose you because I had eliminated every other possibility, and you were still standing. Not because you tried to stand, not because you performed or persuaded or proved yourself, because you were simply there, quiet, patient, unafraid of my silence, unimpressed by my armor. You did not knock on my door. You sat beside it and waited, and that patience, that terrifying, unhurried, almost spiritual patience, broke me in a way that nothing else could, because I realized something. I had spent years protecting myself from the wrong threat. I was not afraid of being hurt again. I was afraid of being seen again. And you, without asking, without pushing, without a single dramatic gesture, you saw me. The version of me I stopped showing anyone. The version that still reaches for things in parking lots. The version that still believes coffee with a stranger can change everything. The version that rehearses conversations in the shower, not because he is anxious, but because he still cares enough to want to say the right thing. You saw that man, and you did not flinch. Do you understand how rare that is? Most people, when they see someone without their armor, look away. They change the subject. They fill the silence with noise, because the rawness makes them uncomfortable. You did not look away. You looked closer, and that is the moment I chose you. Not the first dinner, not the first laugh, not the first time you touched my arm and I forgot how to breathe. The moment I chose you was the moment I realized you had already seen the worst of me, and you were still sitting there. Still quiet, still steady, still unafraid. I want you to hear what I am about to say next, because it is the thing I spent years not understanding. The thing that kept me locked inside my own waiting room long after the door was open. I thought choosing someone meant choosing risk. I thought it meant gambling everything I had rebuilt. My peace, my mornings, my hard-won ability to exist without needing anyone. And I was right, it does mean that. But here is what I did not see. Not choosing is also a gamble. Every day you wake up alone and tell yourself you are fine. You are betting. You are betting that the peace you feel right now will be enough to carry you through every year you have left. You are betting that the Sunday mornings will never feel hollow, that the silence will never shift from chosen to imposed, that the friends will always be there, that the strength will never crack, and maybe you will win that bet. Some people do, but the odds are not in your favor, because the human heart was not built for permanent solitude. It was built for exactly the thing you are avoiding. It was built to be known, not understood, not analyzed, not appreciated from a safe distance. Known, the way a river knows its banks, the way a tree knows the exact direction of the sun, deeply, structurally, in a way that shapes everything else. And the tragedy of choosing safety forever is not that you miss out on love. The tragedy is that you already have the capacity for it. Right now, today, fully intact. It did not leave when he left. It did not die when the marriage ended. It did not disappear when you stopped believing. It went into hiding, the way the truest part of you always goes into hiding when the world proves it is not safe to be seen. But hiding is not the same as gone. And the woman listening to this right now, she knows the difference. She knows because she has felt it. That pulse beneath the armor, that flicker in the chest when someone says something too honest, too close, too real. That flicker is not nostalgia. It is not weakness. It is not the ghost of who she used to be. It is who she still is. Buried under years of practice. Buried under the composure that everyone admires but no one questions. Buried under the reputation of a woman who does not need anyone. But alive. Stubbornly, relentlessly alive. And here is what I learned the day I chose you. I learned that choosing love after you stop believing is not a second chance. It is not a do-over. It is not some fairy tale about finding happiness in your golden years. It is the single bravest act a human being can perform. Because the first time you loved, you did not know what it could cost. You loved with the ignorance of someone who had never been destroyed. But the second time, the time after the parking lot, after the rebuilding, after the years of perfect solitude, the second time, you know exactly what you are risking. You have the receipts. You have the scars. You have the muscle memory of what it feels like to lose everything and have to start over with nothing but a bag of oranges and a broken autopilot. And you choose it anyway. That is not romance. That is warfare. Quiet, deliberate, deeply personal warfare against the part of yourself that swore you would never be that exposed again. I chose you after I stopped believing. Not because you restored my faith. Not because you proved that love exists. Because you proved that I still existed. The real me. The one underneath the calm. The one who shakes when the room gets too honest. The one who wanted to run every single time you got close and stayed anyway. Not because staying was easy. Because running had stopped working. You cannot outrun yourself. I tried. For 9 years, I tried. You can move cities. You can change routines. You can fill every hour with work and books and plans that keep your mind too busy to wander. But at 2 a.m, when the house is dark and the world is quiet, you are still there. The you that wants. The you that aches. The you that placed her hand next to someone's on a table once and felt the entire universe shift. That version of you is not a liability. She is the only version that matters. I know that now. I did not know it then. I know it because I chose you. And the choosing did not save me. It did not complete me. It did not fill the emptiness with warmth and light and all the things the movies promise. It did something harder. It reminded me that I was still capable of standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing exactly how far down it goes, and stepping forward anyway. Not because the fall would be gentle, because the standing still had become unbearable. That is what love after 60 looks like. It does not look like a second chapter. It does not look like starting over. It looks like a woman who has every reason to stay behind her walls, choosing to place one hand on the door, not pushing it open, not tearing it down, just touching it, feeling the weight of it, reminding herself that she built it, which means she is the only one who can open it. And on the other side of that door is not a guarantee. There is a man who is also terrified, a man who also stopped believing, a man who also rebuilt his entire life around the principle of never needing anyone again, and he is standing there, not knocking, not demanding, just breathing, close enough that she can hear him through the wood. That is the image I want you to hold. Two people, on opposite sides of a door they both built, both afraid, both tired, both carrying decades of evidence that this will not work, and both choosing to stay anyway, not because they believe it will work, because they have finally understood that believing is not the prerequisite. Choosing is, you do not need to believe in love to choose it. You just need to be brave enough to admit that the alternative, the beautiful, safe, perfectly quiet alternative, was never really living. It was just the most elegant way to hide. And you, my love, have hidden long enough. What would you have done? Would you have stayed at the table, or walked away to protect the life you built? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your answer. Because every answer teaches me something about the kind of courage that only comes from surviving what should have broken you. If this reached something in you that has been silent for too long, subscribe, stay. There is more to say. And I am not finished yet.